Hey everyone, it's Jill Whalen here again. Today I want to talk about why we sometimes resist this inside out understanding that I talk about here. Not purposely, we don't resist it purposely, but oftentimes it does get resisted by many people. The very fact that you're listening here is good. It means you're probably not so much resisting. If you're here, sometimes what happens is people hear a little bit of this stuff and reject it out of hand, and that's actually pretty common. Hi, Wendy. But other times it's even people who've been in this for a little while, or listening for a while, or trying to learn, it still gets resisted. Now it doesn't happen consciously, but here's what I see. It looks to me like, I've talked about identity a lot. Hi, Maureen. And our beliefs. So our identity is this, seems like this solid thing. I always think of it sort of in the back of our head. It's who we are. And that seems pretty damn solid to most of us, most of the time. But what I have seen, my very first insight, really, before I even came across this understanding, was how our identity is not so solid. And what I see now understanding more what it is, I see that identity is made up of beliefs, just lots of beliefs that we've had for our whole life, and those beliefs themselves are just made up of thoughts that we keep thinking. So identity itself is just thought. But you probably all heard, about ego, and you learned about that in school or whatever. But our identity and ego become, they kind of rule the show without us knowing it. And that comes down to conditioning as well, which we've talked about here sometimes. So what happens when we start to hear a little bit about this understanding, or a lot about it, it's a mega threat to our identity, to who we are, because we're kind of telling you you're not who you think you are. And our ego / identity / self, personal self, does not like that one bit, because that's kind of means the death of it in the end. Like if it unravels it, let's say. So slowly, every insight unravels our identity, our sense of self, our ego a little bit more. And we're so wedded to that identity and who we are. Like, it's just, a lot of times we like who we are. We may at times also not like who we are, but kind of deep down, there's something in there that's, I guess whether or not we like it, it doesn't matter, but we're attached to it, let's say. We're attached to that identity so much that the very notion that it's not us is a big mega threat to us, to our sense of self. And it's and so our sense of self, our ego, that part of us will unconsciously sometimes sabotage us, sabotage our learning, sabotage our listening, sabotage us from being able to let go and not be trying so hard. That ego sense of self is the doer and the trier, and it wants to, it sabotages us by trying harder, because deep down it knows that's not going to help, and that's going to keep it alive, right? All those second thoughts that we've been talking about in the last few videos, that's the ego keeping itself alive, right? And so that's why some people, like, I've been talking to somebody, a family member, when I can, when she's been quiet, I've been able to, tell her a little bit how she's not broken, and and tell her a little bit about how I see thought and how it's our thoughts that create our reality. And I can see that, it's she'll turn away or try not to listen, but I can see it's kind of hitting home. And then, like, later, she'll be so resistant to wanting to hear anything else. And when it because it kind of did hit her. It was my true self, my inner being speaking to her inner being. It wasn't my ego self speaking to her ego self. And that's what hears this stuff. When it's me, when I try to do these videos, I'm trying to come from my inner being, my true self, not my ego self. I can't say that I always get there, but that's the goal, because that's when you're going to hear the most. And so when I can talk from there to you from there, you hear stuff, but then that's when the ego rallies up and resists and starts to ask the how-to questions or whatever. That's all just your ego self, and it's normal. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing really you can do about it. But maybe knowing this, maybe knowing that that's what's happening might help. So for the, I've seen this with other people too in my family. Another person told me, a person who has sometimes anger issues, and I would say, well, it would really help if you'd watch some more 3P videos about this, because this person, has expressed interest, has enjoyed some, and has had some insights. But they told me, when they're in that state of being scared about being angry so often or whatever, and feeling like they were over it, that it scares them to hear this stuff. And that's what that is, that scaredness. If you feel scared when you listen to some of this stuff, that's your ego getting riled up, thinking it's going to die, because it is going to die. And, it's unfortunate in a way, but it's not, because that's the piece of us that, the more we can come from the other piece of us, from our true self, and less from ego. And we'll never, I don't think any of us will probably unravel it completely. I don't even know if that's possible. Some of the enlightened gurus supposedly have, but I kind of tend to think, the more I listen to even them, that they're still, they still have their personality and stuff, so it's never completely unraveled, but it's more that we're not letting it run the show. We're not letting it tell us, no, don't listen to this stuff. It's going to be the death of me. Like we're not. I don't know. It's different. It's different. But that's my take on what's happening. If you find yourself getting scared or not, even just the not understanding it. It could be the ego preventing you from understanding it. Some people have posted, that they've been listening to the stuff for so long and still aren't getting it. It's most likely that it's your ego, your identity, your beliefs, just creating a wall in front of you, not allowing you to hear it, not allowing you. But you know what? Your true self is hearing something, because you wouldn't still be here. You wouldn't still be in the conversation. You're hearing something, and just that little bit of hearing something, even with the people in my family that I've talked to, that I know they've heard something, and that can't hurt. And maybe it can help, because it gives me opportunities to maybe throw in a little more now and then when I can, even if they get scared. But our egos will prevent us, for sure. They'll try. So just knowing that, maybe that'll help. I will end it here, and I hope this was helpful. Give me questions, comments, whatever underneath, and I'll answer them later. Bye.